Download this code and get free GPT-4o from codegive.com, link in the description below. Creating a nested editable subgrid in Dynamics CRM 365 Customer Engagement, CE, involves several steps, including setting up relationships, configuring forms, and writing custom JavaScript code. This tutorial will guide you through the process step by step. ### prerequisites. 1. Dynamics 365 CE environment. Ensure you have access to a Dynamics 365 CE environment. 2. Basic knowledge, familiarity with Dynamics 365 CE, relationships, and JavaScript. ### Step 1, setting up entities and relationships. 1. Create the entities. Parent entity, for example, project. Child entity, for example, task. 2. Define relationships. Create a 1N relationship between project, 1, and task, N. This will allow multiple tasks to be associated with a single project. ### Step 2, configuring the parent form. 1. Open the parent entity form. Navigate to Settings, Customizations. Customize the system. Locate your project entity and open its form. 2. Add a subgrid. In the Form Designer, drag a subgrid onto the form. Configure the subgrid to display tasks. Enable the option for Allow Add and Allow Edit in the subgrid properties. ### Step 3, setting up the child entity form. 1. Open the child entity form. Locate your task entity and open its form. 2. Add fields. Add necessary fields like task name, due date, etc. ### Step 4, implementing nested editable subgrid. Next, you need to ensure that the child entity, task, can also have a subgrid for another level of detail, example subtask. 1. Create the subtask entity. Create a new entity, example subtask. 2. Define relationships. Create a 1N relationship between task and subtask. 3. Configure the task form. Open the task form. Add a subgrid for subtasks and configure it to allow add/edit operations. ### Step 5, custom JavaScript code for nested editing. To enable editing of the nested subgrid, subtask, directly from the task subgrid, you will need to write some JavaScript code. 1. Add JavaScript web resource. Create a new web resource in Dynamics 365 with type JavaScript. 2. Write the JavaScript code. Here's an example of how you might implement the functionality. JavaScript. Function onload task subgrid, execution context. var form context equals execution context dot get form context. / get the task subgrid. var task grid equals form context dot get control, subgrid underscore tasks. If, task grid. Task grid dot add onload, function. / make the subgrid editable. var subgrid control equals task grid dot get grid. var rows equals subgrid control dot get rows. Rows dot for each, function, row. var row data equals row dot get data. var task id equals row data dot get entity, dot get id. / make sure to allow editing of the nested subgrid. row data dot get entity, dot attributes dot for each, function, attribute. / custom logic to determine if the attribute should be editable. Attribute dot set disabled, false. / optionally, add event handlers for creating / editing subtasks. row data dot get entity, dot add onsave subtask. Function onsave subtask, execution context. / logic to handle save event for subtasks. var form context equals execution context dot get form context. / perform any necessary validation or actions here. ### step 6, register JavaScript events. 1. Register the JavaScript. Go to the form properties of the task form. Add your web resource and set the onload event to call onload task subgrid. ### step 7, publish customizations. 1. After making all the changes, make sure to publish the customizations. 2. Test your implementation by creating a new project, adding tasks, and then adding subtasks to those tasks. ### conclusion. You have now configured a nested editable subgrid in Dynamics CRM 365 CE. This setup allows you to manage a hierarchical structure of entities effectively. Remember to thoroughly test the functionality and handle any exceptions or validation as necessary. ### additional considerations. Performance. Be mindful of performance, as deeply nested subgrids can impact load times. User experience. Ensure that the UI is intuitive for users. Security. Check that users have the proper permissions to create, read, update, or delete records. By following these steps, you should have a functional nested editable subgrid in your Dynamics 365 CE environment.